Good morning, everyone. Welcome into Above My Pay Grade. My name is Eric. Got a good one for you today. The Federal Reserve, as I've said many times, is wanting to come out with a central bank digital currency. And if this is all confusing to you, I'm going to try to simplify it as much as possible. And so you can kind of warn or be the annoying relative who's like, hey, you should be a little careful about just being apathetic towards the Federal Reserve and their control over the currency. Now, I have an article pulled up that I will link in the description below. It's from the Federal Reserve's own website. It's from a speech that Governor Michelle Bowman gave about CBDCs. So before I read some of this, I want to talk about how the system works today. If you make a purchase, you've noticed probably in your bank account that it doesn't clear. It says pending. And why does it say pending and not I swipe my card, it's out of my account? Because if your bank like Visa or your bank and Visa and another bank where you purchase that item are in a transaction, there's multiple ledgers, probably 3, that are involved in that purchase. And they have to make sure that the ledgers account for each other, and that takes time. Banks are closed on weekends. So that takes time. And so once those ledgers basically account for each other and the math clears, then the payment clears. And that is cumbersome and it takes time. A lot of it's automated, but what they're trying to prevent is double spending, meaning you spend the same $20 twice. And you can imagine over millions and billions of people how complicated that would be. So it's a lot more complicated than people give it credit for. And so what a CBDC does is it's electronic money, because your money right now is electronic, but it is a antiquated ledger system, just like I said. So if you used cash and we didn't have computers, that ledger system would be the actual physical cash, right? But since we use a digital form of currency or an electronic form of currency today, that ledger system is accounted for at the bank. So that's what banks do, but essentially they're ledgers, believe it or not. And I can go deep down the rabbit hole on that, but I'm not going to. But the point is, what a central bank digital currency allows banks to do is send money kind of like a text message. So if I were to send you money, like I send a text message, there's a cryptographic, meaning you cannot copy it, element to it. Because what has been the issue in the past with anything digital is it's fairly easy to copy and mimic, right? But with cryptography, there's digital handshakes involved, and it's above my pay grade, hence the name of the channel. But there's digital handshakes involved with one party to the counterparty. So it prevents counterfeiting, all right? But it makes it a lot more efficient. Hence why a lot of people like cryptocurrencies. That's why a lot of banks want cryptocurrencies, not for the convenience, for the speed. And I'm going to tell you a couple things to be aware of, because they're coming, regardless of your opinion of them. All right, so, what's her name? Michelle Bowman gave a speech the other day. She's one of the Fed governors, the leaders of Pan Am, the Hunger Games, of course. Anyways, she's one of them, and she says, FedNow service will enable financial institutions of every size and in every community across America to provide safe and efficient instant payment services. Catch the instant part? It doesn't have to clear. So that's a pretty big deal, okay? That increases efficiency. So there's a lot of good things that happen for you, kind of, okay? When it comes to digital currency, I'm going to real quick tell you the difference between this and Bitcoin here in a second. But Suffice it to say, it's more efficient. 100% agree with her on that. It is intended to be flexible, neutral, platform. Neutral, we'll see about that. Platform that will support broad variety of instant payments. It will allow depository institutions and their service providers to offer value-added services to their customer, ultimately enhancing competition. So her whole speech is about staying competitive as banks. And CBDCs and stable coins. If you're in the crypto space, stablecoin is basically a dollar on the blockchain. There's a lot of competition out there that people who don't work for the government are typically innovate around them, because people who work for the government collect a paycheck no matter how hard they work. So people in the private sector innovate around them, and this innovation is coming fast and heavy. And Federal Reserve's realizing, oh no, we're going to be out of a job. Banks are realizing that too. We're going to be out of a job if we don't accept this innovation. That's kind of the genesis and the motivation behind her speech. She continues with, FedNow will help transform the way payments are made through a new service that allows consumers and businesses to make payments conveniently in real time. Hence that ledger system that prevents the double spending, right? It doesn't have to go through 3 different banks. And that's a pretty big deal. Now, I would ask, most consumers don't care, okay, if it's a pending payment. But it's a huge deal for banks. It's a huge deal for the Fed. She mentioned neutral. Now, I would ask you to ask yourself this question. Who's in charge of the money in the United States? It should be the Treasury. This private bank, the Federal Reserve, not federal, has no reserves, is now wanting to issue or control something called FedNow. That seems like it's the job for the Treasury. Why is the Federal Reserve doing it? Great question. Seems corrupt to me. On top of the fact that if their motivation was to provide, which it is, I will tell you that, it is a more efficient way of purchasing things, and that ledger system is quicker. However, my opinion is this. The biggest motivation behind a central bank digital currency is because it's digital, because it's programmable, because every single digit in your bank account, that's probably what it's going to look like. You wouldn't even know the difference. But they know behind that digit all the numbers and the cryptography behind it. So they can track it, they can shut it off, and they can program it. Why is this important to the Federal Reserve? Because we have a little something called inflation. And they realize that their tools are so archaic, because really they can only raise and lower rates. So they can increase or decrease demand. That's it. What if they can program a currency to expire? They say, hey, in 10 days, this batch of currency, if not spent, is going to expire. How would they change human behavior then? What if they can turn it up a little bit here, turn it down a little bit here? It's a very programmable currency, unlike what we have today. Okay, so that's their motivation. On top of the fact that you may be naive, or you think the federal government's not this evil, but I doubt. I'm not one of those people. But the federal government can use it to censor people, right? The federal government can use it to censor people because they can turn off people's bank accounts. La-di-da-di, everybody. You get it, right? So why is the Federal Reserve running it right now? And ask yourself this question. Why, if they're going to have a central bank digital currency, will the ledger, remember I talked about the ledger system, will the ledger be open source? Can I look at it? That is why people love Bitcoin. No one controls it, and the ledger system's open source. You can see it. You can verify it. Right? It's not some pie in the sky like, oh yeah, it's working. It's working. There's no off-balance sheet Bitcoin ledger. It's open source. With the central bank digital currency, they don't want to make the ledger system open source, because that is actually one of the great things about central bank digital currencies and digital currencies in general. You, as a private citizen, can go, wonder what the Federal Reserve and I wonder what the government is spending money on. You flip to page 700 billion. You go, butterfly mating patterns in the Amazon. Probably shouldn't be spending money on that when we have inflation. You would be able to check that. They don't want to make it open source. That should give you some doubts. And I know everyone who watches this channel is probably in the same camp as me. They have their doubts about the truth of the federal government. I would just ask, if you're trying to convince somebody who doesn't give a crap about any of this stuff, naivete, the road to hell is paved with good intentions, as many people have said. But this is not something that you should be naive about. You should be like, oh, it's the same money. Even if you have a neighbor or a relative who doesn't care about any of this stuff, they probably care about self-preservation. And there's a lot in CBDCs that are designed to infringe on liberty and give the power to the government. Okay? So, all right, soapbox over. Let me know what you think. I will link this in the description below. But she wants to release central bank digital currencies, or at least the FedNow system, by 2023. So I know what the government's motivation is, and there's a lot of it there, right? It's not good. It's nefarious, in my humble opinion. Why do I know that? They don't want to make it open source. Right? They don't want to make it open source. And that's why people love Bitcoin, and that's why people don't like the fiat system. Because all this is a more efficient fiat system. More efficient ledger fiat system. That's it. We'll print it out of thin air just like anything else. Anyways, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. See you guys in the next one. Peace.